The winter months certainly weren't easy for Ukraine. Intensive Russian bombardment of its energy infrastructure left most of the country without power, heating, and even working sewage systems for weeks on end during a particularly icy winter. But Ukraine survived, and it's begun 2026 with a bang. Or to be more precise, the critical infrastructure deep inside Russia went bang and was turned into rubble at an ever-increasing rate as a result of intensifying Ukrainian long-range strikes. The reason? Upgraded drones and missiles, AI-enabled control systems, and new swarming tactics that Russia is struggling to contain. So let's take a look at how Ukraine's genius swarm tactics are unleashing chaos deep inside Russia. As the ice started melting and the first green shoots of spring arrived, Ukraine dramatically ramped up its long-range missile and drone attacks on Russian energy, military, and other critical infrastructure. Toward the end of 2025, the Russian Ministry of Defense was reporting shooting down 50 to 150 Ukrainian drones and missiles per day. By mid-March 2026, that number had increased to several hundred per day. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense typically publishes daily information about the previous night's Russian strikes. That includes both the number of drones and missiles fired and the number brought down by Ukrainian air defenses. The Russians just published the numbers they claim to have brought down. Successful strikes, the missiles and drones not reported as being brought down, are not reported. But there's plenty of visual evidence to confirm that an increasing number of Ukrainian strikes are successfully hitting their targets, causing catastrophic damage to the Russian military and energy infrastructure in the process. Ukraine seems to have ramped up production of both frontline FPV drones and long-range strike drones. It's also clearly established serial production of its new Flamingo heavy cruise missiles and long-range strike drone missile hybrids like the FP2 and FP7. On the front lines, Russian military bloggers report a large increase in the number of Ukrainian drones, both GPS-guided and fiber-optic-guided FPV drones. They also report that the Ukrainians have adjusted the radio frequencies via which these drones are controlled, rendering much of Russia's existing anti-drone electronic warfare, or EW devices, ineffective against them. And to make matters worse for the Russians, these new drones have also had their ranges extended by tens of miles. That greatly increases the danger for Russian troops, equipment, and logistics even further behind their advanced positions. Russia is still struggling to adapt to having been abruptly shut out of the Starlink system in early February. The move caused havoc with Russian communications and visibly slowed an offensive in southern eastern Ukraine that had been building momentum. Taking advantage of the opportunity, a new Ukrainian drone onslaught has stopped Russian offensives in their tracks across large swathes of the front line. These new drones and tactics for deploying them have also been a major component of Ukraine's successful counterattacks in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhia regions. Improved drone designs, enhanced anti-EW features, and evolving tactics have all played a part in these battlefield successes. But the effect is even more striking when it comes to Ukraine's long-range strikes ever deeper inside Russia. In those situations, there's a new Ukrainian tactic that's causing Russian President Vladimir Putin sweaty, sleepless nights: autonomous drone swarms. Until recently, drone swarms identifying and attacking targets autonomously were the stuff of dystopian sci-fi scripts. Today, Ukraine has made them a reality, and the party is just getting started. Now, Ukrainian drone swarming technology itself didn't just spring up out of nowhere. The technology has actually been in development for a couple of years. Back in October 2024, Ukrainian Minister of Strategic Industries, Herman Smetanin, announced that Ukrainian defense companies had developed and presented a drone swarm technology. 7 teams of manufacturers presented their drone swarm technology. Representatives from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and General Staff then reviewed the Ukrainian manufacturer's capabilities and provided recommendations for product improvements. And since then, at least one of the companies has delivered working swarm systems and is expanding its operations rapidly. The company is called Swarmer, and at the heart of their game-changing technology is, you probably guessed it, AI. Swarmer's software allows a group of drones to operate as a cohesive unit, or integrated swarm. In a typical mission, a human operator designates a target area, such as an enemy trench. Then, the AI takes over. Here's how a standard Swarmer-enabled strike mission works. 3 to 8 drones operate in the swarm. The first, a reconnaissance drone, charts the optimal course to the human-selected target. The accompanying strike drones, laden with explosives, follow its lead. Then, and this is the key innovation, the strike drones determine the precise timing and sequence of their attack to maximize effectiveness, without direct real-time commands from the operator for the final action. In other words, these are autonomous drone strikes without any human in the loop. In September 2025, the Wall Street Journal declared that Ukraine's use of drones in this way was the first known regular use of autonomous swarm technology in combat, placing Ukraine at the forefront of a disruptive shift in military technology. Autonomous drone swarms weren't a theory anymore. They'd already been used successfully over 100 times by a single Ukrainian unit. The article noted that while current operations typically involve small swarms of 3 to 8 drones, the technology had been successfully tested with groups of up to 25. But that's nothing. Swarmer was preparing for trials involving a formidable swarm of 100 drones. Anecdotal evidence suggests that swarm sizes on the battlefield are indeed growing, and what started as ingenious technology for laying minefields remotely has evolved into a game-changing battlefield weapon. Now, as a result of these successes and successful long-range strikes, which we'll detail shortly, Swarmer is attracting major attention globally. In September 2025, the company announced a $50 million Series A investment round, the largest investment in a Ukrainian defense tech company since the start of the war. The round was led by major US venture capital fund Broadband Capital Investments, with participation from RG AI, D3 Ventures, Green Flag Ventures, Radius Capital, and Network VC. Our software has proven itself in live combat across tens of thousands of missions, Serhiy Kuprienko, founder and CEO of Swarmer, said at the time. This funding enables us to scale our operations and offer advanced swarming capabilities to every unmanned vehicle in Ukraine and across NATO-aligned nations. Western democracies should be able to deploy as many drones and robots as they can produce without being constrained by the number of trained pilots. Then in February 2026, it emerged that Eric Prince had been appointed as the non-executive chairman of Swarmer. Prince is the somewhat controversial founder of the mercenary company formerly known as Blackwater, now Academy, and a prominent name in the US MAGA circles. In a letter to prospective investors, he wrote, "Since April 2024, Swarmer's platform has been deployed in Ukraine with more than 100,000 real-world missions in active combat environments, informing the software and machine learning models that feed into it." It should be noted that according to Swarmer's website, the system has been involved in 86,000 combat missions since 2023, with all the data captured and processed, somewhat less than the 100,000 Prince claimed. Still, approximately 42 Ukrainian armed forces units are using the system, with over 300 combat missions being flown daily. Now, the beauty of the system lies in no small part in its versatility. It can be used for what Swarmer calls fire raids, where the approach to the target is conducted autonomously, but the actual firing is done by a human operator. It can also be used for seek-and-hit operations, where both the reconnaissance and strike are autonomous but require operator confirmation before firing. The Swarmer system can also be used for counter-UAV operations, activating autonomous drone swarms to track down and destroy incoming hostile UAVs. And finally, operators can go whole hog with completely autonomous reconnaissance and strike operations. Swarmer calls this functionality Kill Box. It's a fitting term, adapted from the US's military's kill box concept. In US military terminology, a kill box is a three-dimensional area used to facilitate the integration of joint fires. According to official documentation, the primary purpose of a kill box is to allow lethal attack against surface targets without further coordination with the establishing commander and without terminal attack control. When used to integrate air-to-surface and surface-to-surface indirect fires, the kill box will have appropriate restrictions. The goal is to reduce the coordination required to fulfill support requirements with maximum flexibility while preventing fratricide, friendly fire. Swarmer's fully autonomous kill box functionality certainly seems to tick all those boxes. Over and above autonomous control over aerial drone swarms, involving both fixed-wing and quadcopter-type drones, Swarmer's technology is also being applied to ground and naval drones. While the exact tactics and locations of Swarmer-enabled missions are classified, we can get an idea from Russian reports. One Russian reconnaissance soldier described the drone swarm tactic used by Ukrainian forces on the Krasny-Liman axis. He revealed that several kamikaze drones are launched at once, flying at low altitude connected to a fiber optic line so that infantry cannot hear them. After spotting a target, the drones split up. One moves around to strike from the rear, while the other attacks head-on toward the movement of the unit. Units making use of swarmer drone swarms are also reportedly using another new tactic to increase their strike effectiveness: silent drones. In February, Russian senator for the occupied parts of Zaporizhia Oblast, Dmitry Rogozin, reported that Ukrainian operators of kamikaze drones cut the engine on the final approach so that the UAV glides silently toward the target. The idea, he wrote on his Telegram channel, is to deny Russian machine gun air defense crews the chance to react in time to the sound of an incoming drone. Rogozin claims that the new tactics have had a limited effect. While these new tactics look like something new, he said, Russian forces still managed to destroy them, leaving the overall situation unchanged. However, evidence from burning Russian infrastructure strongly suggests otherwise. And that's what we do here at The Military Show. Dig deeper to uncover the real story behind the headlines. Subscribe to the channel for the latest news and analysis from the battlefields of Ukraine, the Middle East, and beyond. Now, the carnage following Ukraine's new drone tactics seems to have accelerated since around February 10. On February 11, a Ukrainian attack set ablaze a Lukoil-operated oil refinery in Volgograd, and on February 17, at least 2 reservoirs of a Krasnodar oil storage site were destroyed overnight. On February 22, a crude oil pumping station in Tatarstan was demolished overnight, and on February 25, a chemical plant in the city of Smolensk was set ablaze. Satellite imagery later showed it had been burned to the ground. The following evening, Ukrainian drones attacked the Tula area, one of Russia's main arms manufacturing regions, targeting air defenses. And the same region was attacked again on March 1st, as part of one of the most widespread and effective Ukrainian strikes to date. Since January, the bulk of Ukrainian drone attacks against Russian targets have been concentrated on southwestern Russia and Crimea. Smaller air raids have headed deeper into western Russia and occasionally reached distant targets in the Ural Mountains and the Caspian Sea. The attacks on March 1st also followed this familiar pattern. Ukrainian air operations overnight centered their efforts on Crimea and Russia's neighboring Black Sea shore. At the same time, a secondary attack was launched at Tula, some 217 miles away. According to Ukrainian military sources, strike drones hit and disabled a Russian 92 N6A radar system near the village of Sinovaya Gora. The radar is a critical sensor for Russia's S-400 strategic air defense system, enabling the tracking and targeting of incoming Ukrainian drones and missiles. And there were other high-value targets on the radar. In a similar multi-pronged attack, Ukrainian attack drones hit and ignited an oil refinery, as well as hit air defense installations in and around the Russian Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. This is the port to which the Russian Black Sea Fleet was forced to flee after being pounded by Ukraine at its former base in Crimea in 2022 and 2023. The highest number of explosions was recorded near the Sheshkaris oil terminal, one of Russia's high-capacity oil and petroleum transshipment hubs. At least 11 kamikaze aircraft directly targeted the terminal, with images of orange-red explosions and 3 major fires appearing online in the aftermath. The Sheshkaris terminal had only been back online for a couple of months after being closed for repairs following a previous Ukrainian strike in November. But that wasn't the only target in the area hit by Ukrainian drones on that fiery night. Other targets hit in Novorossiysk included warships, oil tankers, oil loading facilities, and air defense installations. Veniamin Kondratiev, governor of Russia's Krasnodar Krai administrative district, told local media the following morning that the massive Ukrainian attack was the most powerful strike to hit Novorossiysk yet. He declared a state of emergency, and other Russian authorities later claimed that 5 people had been injured by falling debris. Additionally, 20 buildings around the city had been damaged, including 17 residential buildings and a daycare center. It's not often that Russian authorities are that candid about damages inflicted by Ukrainian strikes, suggesting that ever more leakers are slipping past Russian air defenses. That's in such a small part down to another new Ukrainian tactic: taking out air defenses to create gaps in coverage before launching the main blows. On February 25, just before the strikes on Crimea, Smolensk and Tula, Ukraine's Special Operations Forces, or SSO, published images and videos of its strike drones hitting a Russian S-400 Triumph interceptor missile launcher, an associated 92 N6E fire-controlled multifunctional radar, and a Pantsir S-1 short-range air defense system. Much of that footage was geolocated to a village outside Crimea's second-largest city, Simferopol. 2 days later, Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, or USF, published a statement and videos showing its drones homing in on and hitting another Pantsir S-1 air defense on the territory of an abandoned steel factory in the city of Mariupol in occupied Donetsk Oblast. The strikes created gaps in Russian air defenses, through which the main attack drones passed undetected, but they also created a pathway for strikes to come. According to Krymsky Vita, an aerial warfare tracking platform, the multi-directional strikes on March 1st flew a route bypassing Russian air defenses. Launched from sites across southern Ukraine, most of the drones flew from 124 miles south over the open waters of the Black Sea before turning east to bypass Crimea and the Russian air defenses deployed there. Or rather, what remained of them. The S-400 is Russia's premier air defense system, firing heavy missiles designed to engage and destroy targets at ranges of up to 250 miles away. The Pantsir system is equipped with autocannon, light missiles, agile radars, and is designed specifically to seek out and knock down drones. Without their radars, both systems are essentially blind and useless for targeting. During the March 1st operation, more air defense assets were hit, paving the way for further attacks through now open airspace. According to the website Ukrinform, a radar unit of an S-300 PMU-2 Favorite, another much-used Russian air defense system, was hit by Ukrainian drones near Novorossiysk, along with another Pantsir system positioned to defend the city's port against drones. And it didn't take long for those strikes to pay dividends. On March 10, Ukrainian forces struck the Kremny L defense plant in the city of Bryansk with Storm Shadow or Scalp EG missiles. The plant reportedly supplies Russia's state defense conglomerate Ulmaz-Unte, which produces air defense systems. It also supplies the state-owned Tactical Missiles Corporation, which manufactures cruise missiles, including the KH-59, KH-69, KH-101, and KH-55 missiles used to strike Ukraine. And it reportedly manufactures components for use in Russia's strategic nuclear arsenal, risking a nuclear response in terms of Russia's nuclear doctrine. The attack, the sixth on the plant since 2022, occurred in broad daylight while the factory was full of workers. Huge fires and explosions were reported, with Russian authorities later stating that 7 civilians were killed and a further 42 were injured. Moscow condemned the attack as a terrorist attack, deliberately targeting civilians, criticized the UK and France for supplying the missiles, and alleged a breach of international legal norms. The following evening, March 11, a Ukrainian drone strike hit the Kubyshev Azot chemical plant in the Tulyuty Samara Oblast, a leading producer of caprolactam and nitrogen fertilizers. On the same night, Ukrainian forces also reportedly targeted the Metrofax chemical plant in the Perm region, which has recently been confirmed by Dmitry Makhornin, the region's governor. These strikes were again likely made possible by the earlier destruction of air defenses en route to the targets. On March 9, Ukrainian strikers destroyed multiple radar systems in Yevpatoria, including Oborona 14 and Nebo-U radars. And it was a similar story just 3 days later. First, Ukrainian forces destroyed Sopka 2 and 48 YA6K1 Podlyot radar stations near occupied Vinorudny. Later the same evening, with air defenses partially blinded, the SSO struck the Tikhoretsk oil pumping station in Krasnodar Krai, causing a major fire at a key oil hub in southern Russia and disrupting fuel logistics. Now, there's no direct evidence that any of these strikes we've discussed were conducted using Swarmer or other autonomous drone swarming technology. But the increased strike rate and growing evidence of widespread use of autonomous drone swarms by Ukraine are unlikely to be entirely coincidental. For now, new technologies coupled with new tactics and increased drone numbers are working for Ukraine. It remains to be seen just how much damage they'll end up doing to the Russian war machine. We'll of course be following events closely, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out. In the meantime, Ukraine has also figured out a way to steal all Russian drones. Check out this video to find out how.